This is the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are going to be throwing you guys just a little bit of a curveball. At the end of last night's show, we said tonight that we were going to be covering the Georgia and Tennessee matchup. We are going to do that tomorrow evening. Right now, on this edition of the Stingray Show, we're going to be talking about the game that is in Oxford, Mississippi this weekend between the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Ole Miss Rebels. We are going to be joined by beat writers from both schools, Kevin Bohanna from hogsports.com and David Johnson, Ole Miss insider, to do deep dives into both sides of the Ole Miss and Arkansas preview right now on this edition of the Stingray Show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
And with that, I want to welcome you inside the Wednesday evening edition of the Stingray Show. And here over the past decade, this has become a very interesting rivalry between the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Ole Miss Rebels. And I'm guessing it has to do with Houston Nutt being let go as the Arkansas head coach and then taking the Ole Miss head coaching job. To break down this game, starting with the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are the road team this weekend, we're about to be joined by Kevin Bohanna, who is a beat writer for the 247 Sports affiliate for Arkansas, hogsports.com. Kevin, how are things with you as we sit here just a little bit before the Hogs travel to Oxford to take on rival Ole Miss?
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me once again. It's anticipation. This is the SEC opener for Arkansas. Of course, Ole Miss got their feet wet in Lexington, Kentucky last week. So there's a lot of storylines around this game. Arkansas was rolling pretty well last year, and Ole Miss came in and beat them 63-31. Yeah. It wasn't that close. It was a beatdown of epic proportions. They're throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, and I had flashbacks of Steve Spurrier in the 90s with Lane Kiffin on the sideline saying, it's your job to stop us. If you're going to keep blitzing, we're going to keep throwing. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
Kevin, if you would talk a little bit about the rivalry that has become Arkansas and Ole Miss, especially over the past decade plus.
Yeah, and you alluded to it in the opening. Houston Nutt was forced out pretty much. You know, they were Frank Broyles was wanting him to open up the offense a little bit, and he hired Gus Malzahn in 2006. That was a 1-year marriage that was broken from the get-go. So after the 2007 season was just tumultuous, even though they had a lot of talent on the offensive side. That's Darren McFadden, Felix Jones. They were juniors. They went in the first round of the 2008 draft the following year. So Houston got his golden parachute, golden handcuffs, whatever you want to call them. He left and got some money on the way out the door and landed in Oxford. And which turned out to be Houston's last job. You know, my dad grew up with Coach Nutt. I've known him and his family for a long time, ever since I was a kid. So had a little connection there. And so it's kind of a natural rivalry because these two actually played each other before Arkansas ever came into the conference due to the proximity and everything. So they would play at the Liberty Bowl. They would play in Little Rock. You know, Ole Miss has been in Little Rock quite a few times and played at War Memorial Stadium. And, you know, when Eli came through, of course, you go back to 2001 and you have the 7 overtime game. That was the longest game in the history of college football at the time. 58-56, the legend of Matt Jones grew that night. So every year it was just, you know, people look forward to playing Ole Miss. They have the baseball rivalry. That's, you know, those two played each other, and there just seems to be a natural rivalry there. It hasn't been forced like the one with Missouri and Arkansas. That one was really forced. It's been really forced. They had a trophy game about it, the Battle Line rivalry, and it's forced. You know, I've never considered Mizzou a rivalry. So, and I think the fact that the games have been really close and really competitive over the past, like you said, the past decade. I think out of the past 12 or past 10, going back to 2015, I calculated it the other day, 6 have been between a score or less. And the first 3 of those were decided by 6 points, and Arkansas won all 3 of them. Ole Miss has won the last 3 that have been decided by a touchdown or less. Last game, last year, of course, was the blowout, but everything else has been pretty close outside of 3 years ago when Arkansas won 42-27. They got up 42-6 in that game and kind of let their foot off the gas.
So, Kevin, looking at Arkansas through the first 2 games of the season, that is against an FCS opponent, and then last week against Arkansas State. Give us what you're encouraged about and what you're concerned about going into this Ole Miss game with Arkansas, please.
Absolutely. So the offense has been rolling. Bobby Petrino, year 2 with Taylor Green. It's looked about everything that I expected it to look like, and they've still only hit the tip of the iceberg, Steven. I mean, they haven't done very much. They actually did a little bit of shifting into an empty set, opening up against Arkansas State, but no crazy motion, no crazy plays, no trick play. I mean, it's been very vanilla. They've thrown more crossing routes and drag routes than they have the past 2 years, I believe. So,
Yeah.
and Taylor's gotten really good at that. The running game has been good. Of course, they had over 300 yards rushing past weekend. Taylor Green went for 151, which was his career high. That's the 4th most rushing yards by a Razorback quarterback in the history of the school. And then Mike Washington had a 53-yard touchdown run on the second play of the game. He finished with 9 carries for $116. So he's got 195 through 2 games, and he hasn't rushed but 18 times. He hasn't hit double digits yet. So there's still more that we get to learn about the offense.
Right.
The good thing is Taylor Green has 10 touchdown passes. 7 different players have caught touchdown passes so far. There's 3 that have multiple touchdowns, but they're able to spread the ball around a little bit this year. KJ Jackson's gotten in, the backup quarterback's gotten in a couple of times. And his touchdown drive the other day was 99 yards. Arkansas had a goal line stop. They put in the backup offensive unit, not just the backup quarterback. The second string offense marched it down the field 99 yards. He hit all 3 tight ends on one drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was impressive. He finished it off with a little scramble for a touchdown. So the depth is there. The offensive line has played well. Corey Robinson and Fernando Carmona on the left side are really good. Now, if I say there's a concern on the offense, I think that right now they're they're a little much, one-sided. Yes, the right side is good, but I think they tend to like to run on the left side. Teams are going to pick up on that in the SEC. As long as Taylor Green continues to make good decisions, he did have 2 interceptions last week that were really his fault. So that was the first time that he, out of the last 2 games, he's number 1 in passing efficiency in the SEC right now, but he does have 2 turnovers to go with his 10 touchdowns. So if I'm nitpicking, and that's my job most of the time, is they need to continue to make good decisions on offense. Defense started out really slow against Alabama A&M. He gave up a touchdown on the very first drive. Fast forward, and they've only given up 1 touchdown since that first drive. So you got 7+ quarters. They only allowed 1 touchdown. They did give up a kickoff return for a touchdown last week. So that's how ASU scored their 14 points. Linebacker play was a lot better last week. Xavier Sorey, Steven Dix. Sorey finished with 14 tackles, 15 by some accounts, 2 tackles for a loss and interception. He was covering a wide receiver on the interception on an out route. So that just shows you the speed, athleticism that Sorey has. So concern on defensive side, still the depth of the defensive line. They're just not very deep right now. So corner secondaries played well so far. They played physical. We talked about how big they are, how physical they are. They shut Arkansas State down. They'll have to play with the same passion and physicalness, the physicality this coming up weekend against Ole Miss.
All right. So we are going to get into that Ole Miss game that you just alluded to on the other side of this break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will continue with the Ole Miss and Arkansas preview show right after this. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. This is the Arkansas and Ole Miss preview show. We are starting off with Arkansas first, and my guest this evening is Kevin Bohanna from hogsports.com, which is the 247 sports affiliate there for Arkansas. And Kevin, when you look at this game this weekend going on the road to Ole Miss, talk about the hype and the expectation from the Arkansas faithful, especially because a lot of them had Sam Pittman on the hot seat going into this season.
Yeah, and I believe when I was on here last time with you and Heath, and we were going through the schedule and looking at everything, I said that this game, believe it or not, first conference game, first real road game, was really kind of a tipping point game for the season because it's one of two things. It could project Arkansas on the way to having a good season and finishing 8-4 possibly, or they'll have to play catch up. And if you lose at Ole Miss, your next couple of games are pretty tough. They got a new team, but it's on the road at Memphis. Then you got Notre Dame at home. Then you have to go back on the road to Tennessee, which Tennessee right now, in my opinion, is one of the top three teams in the SEC. The way they've been playing, Josh Heupel had to replace a lot of guys. They look pretty good so far. So you have the possibility of opening up 0-2 in conference play. Then you get your first SEC home game is not until October 18th. Thanks, SEC. We appreciate that. So, so 0-2, 0-3 is a very good possibility if Arkansas loses this game.
Yeah.
I picked Arkansas to win this game in the preseason because I thought Ole Miss had too many things to replace. Austin Simmons is not Jackson Dart.
No.
He's not. Trey Harris is gone. Look, the guy they got from Penn State, he's got some wiggle. He can run. He had a big play on 4th and 1 with Austin Simmons against Kentucky. That was a really gutsy play call right there because Kentucky was up 10-0 at that point, and the wheels were about to come off. So Simmons made a good throw on that 4th and 1 on a little play action pass. So with that said, the Ole Miss has been better than Arkansas in the trenches over the past few years. There's no doubt about that. They do have a defensive lineman that's 6'8", 330. It was co-defensive lineman of the week in week 1. So Arkansas will have to game plan for that. I think Arkansas is better equipped this year to handle Ole Miss with their offensive line. They have the experience. They have the guys that can actually block this year. Now, the thing that I worry about, like I just said, is the defensive line for Arkansas and Ole Miss's offense. Like I said in our advanced look on hogsports.com, look, this is Charlie Weiss Jr. He's the offensive coordinator, but this is Lane Kiffin's offense. This is his car. This is his Ferrari, and Weiss Jr. is just the one that has the keys right now. So Arkansas fans are really excited. Our message board is, fired up daily with, what they're expecting, what we're looking for. We do a great job at Hog Sports of putting out just about every angle you could look for in a ball game, and the fans really eat it up. So they think Taylor Green could put him on the track to the Heisman. There's talk about that. He's tied for the national lead in touchdown passes right now. So there's a lot of fire with Hog fans right now coming off of that historic win against Arkansas State, seeing as it was the first time those two had ever played each other.
Now, briefly, before we move into the matchup, there was an injury that happened in that Arkansas State game. One of the wide receivers that we talked about, who was one of the oldest ones on the team, Monty Williams, I think it is.
Monte Harrison, yeah.
Monte Harrison. He broke his foot and will be out for some time. How is that going to play into the game plan for Ole Miss, in your opinion?
Believe it or not, it's not going to have that much of an impact.
Okay.
He hasn't been a huge part of the game plan like we thought he would, because he was the one during preseason scrimmages and fall camp that was just lighting the world on fire. 4 catches for 100 yards, 5 catches for $114. Those type of numbers against some pretty good guys in the secondary. So he had a catch for 29 yards against Alabama A&M, and that was about it. So other guys have stepped up. Like I said, 7 different guys have caught touchdown passes. Those receivers, C.J. Brown, Jalen Brown, Raylan Sharp, Omega Blake has become Taylor Green's favorite target. Then you got Cam Shanks. You got guys that weren't with Arkansas last year, but they've really developed a good amount of chemistry this year. So I don't think it affects them too much.
All right. Now, when you look at this matchup, you have covered Arkansas for 2 games. Where do you feel like that Arkansas has the biggest advantage this weekend over Ole Miss?
Believe it or not, I think Arkansas will be able to run the ball.
Okay.
I think they'll be able to establish, I won't say dominance, but they'll be able to do a lot of things. I was posed a question yesterday on local radio here in Arkansas that what has made this offense better through 2 years, through 2 games in the second year of Bobby Petrino. And I put it like this. I said, it's a simple formula and a simple equation, guys. Bobby Petrino has more weapons, so that opens up the playbook a little bit. The more plays that you're able to call equals the more possibility or opportunity to get bigger chunk plays. More chunk plays equals more yardage. More yardage can equal more points at the end of the day. Arkansas did not have a problem moving the ball last year. They had a top 10 offense in terms of yardage. It was their points. It was turning the ball over, not very good in the red zone. So that's one of the things that so far this year they've been better at. They've converted. They've done a really good job of putting points on the board. I think they'll be able to move the ball against Ole Miss. This is not an Ole Miss defense, even though I have a lot of respect for Pete Golding and the pressure that he puts on an offense. I don't think they're quite at the level that they've been at the past couple of years. So I think Arkansas has the advantage on the offensive side of the ball. I do think it's a shootout typically, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. The team that, and I won't say the team that has the ball last is going to win, but the team that commits the fewest amount of turnovers is usually going to win this ball game.
All right. Let's flip it. Where are you most concerned about Ole Miss taking advantage of Arkansas?
They're going to be able to run on the edges with against Arkansas, I believe. That's the biggest thing. Weiss does a really good job of setting up and picking apart a defense in terms of outmanning you. So there are going to be a lot of motions, shifts. Arkansas is going to have to play with extreme eye discipline this weekend. The linebackers are going to have to read their keys. Guards are going to be pulling. There's going to be guys moving all over the place. You have to move with them. If it's your guy, go with him. Feel it. See the play developing. So I think that's the biggest thing that Ole Miss has the advantage over this weekend. And who knows who's going to play? If it's going to be Simmons, if it's going to be Chambliss. Right. Austin had a injury to his left ankle. That's his plant leg. That's his push-off leg, being a left-handed quarterback. So Ole Miss is going to run the ball with Kejuan Lacey. He's their best back they've had since Quinshawn Junkins, and they want to do the same thing. So while there will be a lot of passing in the game, I think it's going to come down to the trenches of who wins the ball game.
All right. So Kevin, who do you have winning the game? You talked about earlier in the preseason you had Arkansas winning that game. Are you sticking with it?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with it right now.
Okay.
Yes, I cover for Arkansas, but I like to pride myself, especially covering baseball and football for Trey and 24/7 Sports, of being one of those realist guys. It's not a homer take. I think Arkansas plays with a lot of momentum right now. This is one that they can go on the road and steal and be one of the games that they're not supposed to win, because Ole Miss is favored by 7 points. It was 10 at one time. They're the top 15 ranked team. I don't think Ole Miss is a top 15 team right now. I think they have the potential to be later in the year, but Simmons has had 4 interceptions. I think he only has 3 touchdown passes on the year. So they're still figuring out, how to win with a 19-year-old quarterback. Very smart, but he still has a long way to go. He's not Jackson Dart. So with Taylor Green being a second-year starter for Arkansas, a fifth-year guy overall that's a senior with a lot of experience. Tilts to Arkansas in this one. I think they win 38-34.
All right. And this will be on the podcast, but I did want to ask this question to you.
Okay.
You talked about in the when we brought you on for the preview show about how awful the stadium was there in Little Rock for the Arkansas State game. How was it last weekend for Arkansas and Arkansas State?
From a field levels perspective, for the players, it was a great atmosphere. You had 54,000 fans. It was sold out, but the internet was out for most of the first half in the press box. Yeah, imagine that with dozens and dozens of media members up there trying to do their stuff and getting workarounds and stat broadcast creative. Getting into the stadium, there were a lot of fans that missed the kickoff. Trey Biddy, who's our publisher at hogsports.com, was late not getting to the game, but late getting, in terms of his time frame, because they had to shut down a route going into the stadium. So the governor put a letter out to Arkansas fans, University of Arkansas and Arkansas State the other day, how this game needed to be played every year in Little Rock. It's not going to happen. Whether it happens in the future, look, Arkansas has 9 SEC games from here on out until they change that again. So they're only three non-conference games. They're going to continue to play an FCS school, and they have to play a P4 opponent. So that only leaves one game, and that game is tied. That non-conference game is tied up till 2031. So the first conceivable chance that Arkansas and Arkansas State have to play is 2031. So whether it happens, but I think they're done at War Memorial. It was a great way to send Arkansas off into the sunset.
Yes.
It's been a great run for the Grand Old Lady, but it's just time to hang it up.
Kevin, look, man, go and enjoy covering Arkansas and Ole Miss there in Oxford this weekend. Woo Pig Suey. Hope you guys can get off to a 3-0 start this year, and we would love to catch up with you later on down the road to continue our discussion of Sam Pittman and the Hogs of Arkansas.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Stephen. And hey, my parents are a fan of your show now. Last time I was on the preview, I got a call from my mom, and she said, "I didn't know you were on the Stingray show." And I was like, "I didn't know that you knew about the Stingray show, but I'm pumped that you do." So you got a fan in my mom and dad. So just want to say hello to them because they'll be listening.
Okay, great. Thank you, man. Woo Pig Suey, and we will catch you next time, okay?
Thanks, bud.
All right, so guys, that is going to wrap up the Arkansas portion of this show. I really do want to thank Kevin Bohanna from hogsports.com for joining me on this edition to do a full deep dive into the Arkansas Razorbacks. When we come back on the other side of this break, we are going to be joined by David Johnson of Ole Miss to get his take on all things Rebels going into this matchup. That's on the other side of the break. And you're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back to cover this game from the Ole Miss perspective. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. We just finished up talking about the Arkansas side of this matchup. Now, let's go on ahead and dive into the Ole Miss side, as Ole Miss is the home team this weekend. And to break down the Ole Miss Rebels, here is our good friend, Ole Miss Insider, David Johnson. David, how are you as we sit here just a few days away from another SEC tilt for the Ole Miss Rebels?
Yeah, good to be with you, Stingray. Man, I tell you, this is an Ole Miss team that I can honestly see making the college football playoffs as far as the ceiling goes.
Right.
As far as the floor goes, I think there are still a lot of questions to be answered. I could see the floor being as low as 7-5.
Mm-hmm. So, David, if you would, go ahead and talk about briefly week 1 against Georgia State and then what you saw in the SEC versus SEC matchup last weekend at Kentucky.
Yeah, week 1 was just an SEC team versus an inferior opponent.
Yeah.
63-7, the final score. And Ole Miss had its way on both sides of the football. You really don't learn much about a team in a game like that.
Right.
Week 2, a much more competitive game at Kentucky. But, let's be honest, Kentucky is not LSU, by a long stretch. They're not Georgia. But still a 10-point win on the road at Kentucky. And you got to feel good about that. But I don't know that you've got SEC caliber questions answered just yet, if that makes any sense.
Yes. All right. So Austin Simmons is coming into this season trying to replace Jackson Dart. Talk about his performance, please, through the first 2 games of this season.
Yeah, again, you go to the Georgia State game, and it was kind of what you expected. The Kentucky game, a little underwhelming, if you will, because of the 2 first-quarter interceptions that led to Kentucky points. Austin is a smart kid. He's 19 years old, already has a bachelor's degree from Ole Miss. Ought to leave there with a doctorate or dang near close to it. It's only going to take him a little time, I think, to get adjusted before you see his true superstar potential. Because, look, SEC defenses, there's a monster at every position. They're coached well. They have intelligent schemes designed to throw off a quarterback and his instincts. And, what I've noticed from Austin in the first 2 games, his throwing motion has a little bit of, I would call it a baseball hitch in it. He's a baseball pitcher and, a little bit of hesitation. You get away with that against teams like Georgia State, not against Kentucky, probably not against Arkansas. So, but I think he's a work in progress, much like, the national media narrative on Arch Manning at Texas has been a work in progress. I think Austin Simmons is going through a lot of the same growing pains. He's going to get there. He's going to be a great quarterback. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season or not.
All right. When we go into the matchup this weekend versus Arkansas, talk about the expectation and especially the hype there in Oxford as they await their first SEC home game of the season.
Yeah, you go back to last year and Ole Miss put, I think, 63 on Arkansas and Fayetteville. It was a rout.
Yeah.
And, the first thing that comes to mind is you got to think Arkansas is stewing from how they performed in that game.
Yeah.
I would even say this is a game they spent a chunk of the offseason getting ready for.
Yes.
What scares me about Arkansas is, one, I think they're better than Kentucky. Not much better, but they're better. 2, they're going to have that chip on their shoulder. And 3, they've got a really good quarterback of their own named Taylon Green.
Yes.
And, he's a dual threat guy. He can run, he can throw. He's got big receivers that can catch the football. And, I think he makes this game interesting. I really and truly do. But Lane Kiffin obviously can game plan for Sam Pittman very well. And, I think it's going to come down to a chess match. I really do. While Ole Miss is trying to gel with all their portal players, Arkansas seems to have done that. And, I think this is going to be a heck of a game Saturday night.
So, David, you have covered Ole Miss this season for 2 games so far. Where do you feel like there is cause for concern that Arkansas can take advantage of Ole Miss?
Yeah, offensive line. I think the offensive line has plenty of talent on it, but it's got to gel together as a unit. Okay. And, I think Ole Miss has had a difficult time figuring that out. They go in the portal, they get this guy from this school and another guy from another school that did well, and you throw those 5 guys together, but they haven't been playing together very long.
Yeah.
And, for instance, there's a guy from Arkansas, Patrick Kutas, very highly rated in the transfer portal, playing guard for Ole Miss, right guard, and he's had 2 terrible games.
Yeah.
He was a stud at Arkansas last year, and if he's got a coming out game, this would be the one. But a little bit of concern there up front on the offensive line. As we've talked about the quarterback position, I do believe Austin Simmons is going to get better as the year goes on. The ground game is much better this year. The wide receivers, I think, have the potential to be just as good. They've got to get Caden Lee more involved, I think, in the game. And defensively, we're still trying to learn the front that Pete Golding brought in, mostly from the transfer portal. And those guys have not been overwhelming. I'm not going to say they've underperformed, but they haven't been overwhelming early on. And I would expect Pete Golding is going to assign a spy to Taylon Green. I think that's going to be preseason All-American linebacker edge Suntarian Perkins. I believe Perkins and Mr. Green will have some meetups on Saturday night.
All right. So David Johnson, Ole Miss Insider, is our guest this evening from Ole Miss. How do you see it playing out Saturday night there in Oxford between Arkansas and Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think this game is going to be a lot like the Kentucky game. It's going to be close, could be even tied in the fourth quarter. But I do think with a home field advantage, and there is beginning to be one at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. There used to not be one. I mean, to be honest with you, there is now. The fans are much more spirited, if you will, much more involved. That's what winning 10-plus games 3 out of the last 4 years will get you. I think Ole Miss takes this game. I think the Vegas spread is right on, anywhere between 9 and 11 points. And I think Ole Miss runs away with this in the end.
All right. And David, as we walk out the door, what do you feel like if Ole Miss gets the win? What will that do for their confidence moving forward in this season?
It needs to do a lot, because next up will be Tulane, and then after Tulane will be LSU. It's been a heck of a September here in Oxford. You will have played 3 SEC games in the month of September, and it's a chance to get out and lead the pack. Ole Miss is the only 1-0 team in the SEC as we speak right now. But the pitfalls of playing an SEC schedule, the LSU game will be huge regardless. It's the Tulane game I worry about a little bit. John Summerall used to be an assistant here at Ole Miss, is a good friend of mine. Tulane is winning, and John wins everywhere he's at. It's hard to sometimes get an SEC squad motivated to play up to their abilities in a non-conference game, and that game I think is dangerous. Ole Miss has the talent to win it by 30, but it's Tulane, and Tulane can beat you any given day.
David, look, man, thank you for your time. Go and enjoy covering Ole Miss versus Arkansas this weekend, as these games have always been a barn burner and a blast going back the past decade. And we would love to catch up with you later on to continue our talks of the Ole Miss Rebels.
You say the past decade, but you can go all the way back for a quarter century to that 7 overtime game in Oxford. I mean, this thing, you never know what's going to happen. Could come down to a field goal. But, Stephen, thank you for having me on, brother. I really appreciate you.
And I will also say this to you, hotty toddy, good luck this weekend.
Hotty toddy, everybody.
David Johnson right there, Ole Miss Insider. Really do want to thank him for joining us.